Welcome to Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Here we have intimate conversations with extraordinary dance and theater artists about reimagining creativity and supporting and building community. Creative Vitality Jam Sessions and I walk in solidarity and as allies for equality, justice, and respect. Black Lives Matter, and we will stay in action in order for change to come. I'm Helen Pickett, and today's guest is Chalvar Monteiro. He is a star dancer with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Chalvar and I have known each other since 2007. Welcome, Chalvar.
Hi.
Hi. So I was just saying that we have known each other since 2007. And why don't you recount how we met?
So I remember meeting you auditioning for Smuin Purchase's spring concert for 2007. And you were, I think, one of the only choreographers that year creating a brand new ballet, something that hadn't been done before on other companies. And it was also my first stab at doing something in the contemporary ballet fashion, having ballet shoes on, and tackling vocabulary that kind of went outside of what is codified vocabulary, my training, and also being able to attach an emotional layer and a performative aspect to it all within the audition process, which is also something that I learned to love about Smuin Purchase, because you were really immersed in your audition was almost a simulation of what would be demanded of you in rehearsal space. So getting to know you and what your standard was then, and then getting to work together for 2 or 3 months leading up to the performance was one of the first pre-professional experiences that really turned the light switch on and made me really excited to tackle this career.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Yeah, I loved that experience because of the time afforded. And it was really a journey. I had to travel 2 hours from Brooklyn to get up to White Plains, to time the train right. It was a total experience, and it really felt like in that experience, community was built as well because we had the time to do this. And we got to build a space because of the time as well. The space that became the piece. Yep. So I'm just thrilled to have you here. First question, what part of the world are you in?
I'm in Harlem, New York right now.
In New York, great.
Yeah.
And so let's just dive in. So Chalvar, I want to start with your early training. Besides Sharon Miller's Academy of Performing Arts, you studied at the Ailey School and then went to Smuin Purchase to earn your Bachelor of Fine Arts. So you were at the Ailey School as a young student well before you joined Ailey too. Can you explain that trajectory, how you went to Ailey and then went off to Smuin Purchase to get your BFA? And I have other questions about your work before the main company, but is there something in there about that trajectory of how the places you found yourself in?
Absolutely. So my early training, I was fortunate enough to meet Sharon Miller, who was in the Ailey company with the likes of Mazazumi Chai and Judith Jamison. They were her peers. And then she went on to do commercial work and Broadway work. And she started a school in New Jersey to kind of create as much of a well-rounded experience for young aspiring dancers. And so I met her going into my 9th grade year, my freshman year of high school. And so I started going to the Ailey School the following summer, so my 10th grade year. And I only went to the Ailey School in my summers. I couldn't afford to go year round. And so I would be training in New Jersey during the year and then Ailey in the summers. And I did that for about 3 years. And I actually went to Montclair State University for a year because I graduated from high school a year early. So what would have been my senior year, I was at Montclair State University, getting my freshman year, my first freshman year. And then I ended up transferring to Smuin Purchase after that. So I started over as a freshman because the dance credits didn't transfer over, but I wasn't too bummed about that because I was still 17, so I didn't miss much. So going to Purchase is when I met you, and I got to do works by Doug Barone and all these other great people. But I, before going to Purchase, I applied to Fordham twice, the Fordham BFA Ailey program twice. The first time they told me I was too young, Miss Jefferson was like, you have a lot of promise, but maybe you need a little bit more discipline, maybe come back a year later when you're older, because 16 is a little jarring for us as faculty. And so the following year, I came back and auditioned, but I wanted to have an experience that was a lot less familiar. I wanted to have an experience where I wouldn't be given any preferential treatment because I was a familiar face. I wanted to really scratch my way from the bottom because I only had 3 to 4 years of training at that time. And that whole time I felt like I was catching up. And so then when I met you freshman year and you trusted me with dancing and ballet shoes, and the understanding of technique that I had at that time was really a confidence booster for me, and also affirmed my choice in going to Purchase and starting from scratch and meeting everybody at surface level and creating relationships from there. And so then carving out my space as a professional, I auditioned for the Ailey company many times. But still had a successful freelancing career. But Ailey was always the goal. But it wasn't until I think I had been dancing freelancing for about 4 years at the time, and I got invited to have a meeting with Troy Powell, and Troy was like, I know you already have a career that you've already kind of been making, you're a staple where you are, and it's a risk to come to Ailey too because getting into the first company isn't guaranteed, but would you want to join the second company? And I was like, you know, any opportunity to perform Revelations or any work by Mr. Ailey in any capacity is an honor. And so even if it's not guaranteed, it was a leap that I made. And it was a really weird leap because I was also, I think, 25 at the time. And I understood Ailey too to be a junior company, and the oldest person was usually 21, 22. And so I was a little nervous to make that leap at 25 and having a great relationship with Kyle Abraham, who I was dancing with at the time. But, you know, I had to do it.
Yeah, but I have to go back a bit because what I find extraordinary with many, I'm going to use the word again, but with many extraordinary individuals is that it really, really hit home when you said, I didn't want to, I'm going to put it in my words, I didn't want to rest on my laurels by being known, and by default, you know, you go through the system. But I have to say, just because you're known doesn't mean you're going to get in that company. We know that too, right?
Absolutely.
But when I listen to you, what I hear your choices gave you is, my goodness, were you well-rounded when you decided to make that leap at 25. And that is courageous because you are already established.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going into a second company.
Yeah.
But the riches you came with almost, and I'm gonna take a leap here, but almost assured your next step into the first company. I mean, I have to say that there is something to all of the preparation, if you will. I know you said you started a little late and perhaps you were still catching up, and wow, how wise of Miss J, right? To say 16's a little young for the Fordham program. So wise in that way to support you in a way. And I also have to mention this because tenacity is such a huge part of success. And when you said I auditioned many times, man, because you had a goal and an intention. And that tenacity, I try to, and I'm sure you do too, when you teach and when you coach and when you also set, you know, these various choreographers, which we'll get into their work. But because of where you came from, I'm sure you pass that on and say, like I say, it's up to you what you do with your career. And I'm going to help you with those steps. I'm going to tell you that tenacity and intention and reminding you that here is a yes, and I'm sure you give that, and that most of us do quit just before that light. It's like that glimmer of light is always there. And I think for young people to really understand that that light actually is there for all of us, but the work will need to be done.
Absolutely.
So amazing, Chalvar, to hear that. Like I thought I knew you, and also have to put a shout out to Carol Walker, because I really thought that the purchase she set up was fantastic, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, purchase, I don't remember who I heard this from. It was in a rehearsal process for some concert, whether it was a Nutcracker or something that we did there. But I remember somebody saying something to the effect of, "You're responsible for your own success." And even though sometimes it is a conversation about your proximity to access or, you know, resources and things, I really do believe that you are responsible for your own success, and that, you know, you can hear no and you can believe the no. And you know, I did have an experience at Purchase that made me believe that I wasn't worthy of a certain type of career. And I believed it for so long, for so long. But then I realized I had to take that same energy that I gave that insecurity, repurpose it a little bit, shake it up, and then just figure out how to add it to my arsenal as something to push me forward. But yeah, Purchase was really, if I had to do college all over again, I would go back to Purchase.
Yeah, and you know, what you said is we do as artists hear more no's than yeses. But what I always try to impart is all you need is one yes. If that yes is big and bright, you know, so wow, Chalvar, amazing. So here we go. So I want to get into these choreographers that you work alongside with and you've worked for, and as I said, with. You worked extensively with Abraham in Motion, Kyle Abraham. In addition, you danced with Sidra Bell, who I also know really well, love her. Sidra Bell Dance, New York, Elisa Monte Dance, Kegwin and Company, and Body Traffic, all before Ailey too. I mean, again, what you came to the table with, right? With this extensive reimagining, because I really think I posed this question for in one of my interviews, that I also believe reimagining happens every time you step into working with a new choreographer, a new company, a new situation. There's this moment where you decide where you can be anything you want to be with the core of you intact, right?
Mm-hmm.
With this extensive reimagining from your prior experience, do you feel you had a strong sense of self or dancer identity? And can you explain how you thrived with all these different creators?
So I started working with my junior year at Purchase College. I started working with Sidra Bell Dance New York on a project called House Unrest, which was a collaborative effort with Gregory Delvashian. And it was site-specific work on the Lower East, not the Lower East Side, but like East 26th Street. And it was a hotel, and it was a huge cast, and it was my first time working with her, but it was also my first time, again, Purchase introduced me to a new vocabulary, a new way of working, and Sidra Bell, her brain it's amazing. You can get lost in there. There's so much information. And so yeah, I started working with Sidra Bell then, and then the next year, she later choreographed my senior solo, which then was the groundwork for one of her works called Beautiful Beast. And so that was my first time being in a space where collaboration, a collaborative effort was a real thing. Exchange and conversation and dialogue was a real thing between us, which was really cool. And so then moving into Kyle's world right after that, and Elisa Monte. I was dancing with Kyle and Elisa Monte at the same time. And so working with Elisa Monte, that was a lot more old school, what we say, traditional, modern dance, crazy partnering, super athletic, stamina. My stamina was amazing working with her. But getting to work with her where there was very little collaboration, but there was still a lot of work that fulfilled me. And also reminiscent of the type of work I wanted to do with Mr. Ailey's work. So it was in the same vein. And we were also doing a duet at the time that was made popular to me through the Ailey experience, Treading, which is an amazing duet. But it was there that I kind of learned the value of just being a canvas and learning and taking things on and personalizing it. And then with Kyle, when I would go work with Kyle at the same time, I was given the opportunity to have a voice and to share my experience and to be more than a canvas, but actually a contributor to the world that he's creating and how he wants to shape the character he's building for me. And also having agency in that space and saying, this doesn't feel right. May I go to the left instead of the right? Very simple things and also very important things. And so after 1 year with that rhythm, I ended up leaving Elisa Monte to make Kyle more of a full-time focus. And that's when I got the opportunity to be an assistant professor with him at Emory University. That's when I started to become kind of his right hand. And he trusted me with a lot very early on. I was like 23 with all these great opportunities setting work for him, but he really trusted me.
You were ready.
I was ready, yeah. Yeah, he saw that I had a way with words and organizing things, and he used those skills to introduce me to a career path I didn't know that I had interest in. I didn't know that I would maybe one day want to be a rehearsal director, or I don't even know, but something in the front of the room. My focus was always performing. And so I really thank Kyle for trusting me to not only teach in his absence, but to also go to Barnard College or Princeton University, or even his project with Wendy Whalen, her Restless Creature project that toured. I got to not only be his collaborator, but I also got to teach her vocabulary and also be her understudy in case anything was to happen. And I was like, this is amazing. It was through Kyle that I really got to understand my identity, what it is that I wanted to represent, what it is that I found value in. And so then, fast forward to now, I have a lot of sure footing in this really big company of 32. Because before this company, every company, like Kyle's company, Larry Keglin's company, everybody, there was no group larger than 10 people at a time. And so the culture really helped enhance ownership. It helped create a family dynamic where nothing was off the table, everything could be discussed. So I felt safe to express myself, but then I also, because we were a family, I also learned tools on how to communicate and who I was speaking to, because you can't speak to everybody the same way, And so then when I got hired with Robert Battle, the first thing he told me in our meeting directly after hiring me was that he hired me, yes, because I was a versatile dancer, but more so because he could see that I was spiritually grounded and that my curiosity for movement and just to be a team player was evident in how I navigated myself in the audition space, and how when he peeked in on Ailey 2 rehearsals, he saw that thing come through. And the things that everybody says matters, but it doesn't really register until it comes back to you and somebody says, your reputation precedes you, and this is what I think of you, and this is why you're getting this gift. And so it's been a beautiful journey thus far, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, I mean, Chalvar, again, just hitting a few, God, I can't even hit all the points. There's so much wisdom in this, in what you have just said. But the thing I'm gonna do broad strokes with is that when I hear you, when I hear other artists I've talked with in this milieu, what becomes evident is that there is a like-mindedness of creative collaboration and community that seems to be emerging and practiced during this time. I mean, I'm not talking about this time, but I mean in our time of dance. And isn't that just, like you said, isn't that a gift because of agency, because of your voice matters, because of personal responsibility, because you have a stake in what you're creating? This is everything that I certainly believe in, but I wouldn't have ever known how pervasive it's becoming without talking to so many artists, and to hear you say it so eloquently, and that with so many people you got to experience this creative life with so many people. I mean, God, that's made my day in a way, to hear that being practiced across the board. I
Yeah.
mean, your life, beautiful, right?
Yeah, I mean, even I was saying, I don't remember who I was saying this to, but I even referenced what we did together for the home studies. And I was saying that it's really interesting that at a time where community is all that I crave, especially as we work in a digital space, it's interesting how much there's a lot more compassion and sensitivity and patience as we work together in these digital spaces. And I hope that this enhanced sense of community really continues when we get back together in the physical realm. I really hope that all of those things really shine through, and that there's more warmth and more time to really build and give value to the things that need it.
Yeah, and certainly more across the table reaching that seems to be happening in this space as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hope that these seeds are planted. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
So there was another part, but you might have answered this. Do you think working with this plethora of artists enhanced your incredible ability to interpret, oh yeah, different choreographic styles?
You know, I will say that was a concern of mine at one point. I think towards the end of my time with Kyle Abraham, because at the time his company was not a repertory company. He hadn't included other voices yet into the repertoire. And so I was, even though his vocabulary is all over the place and requires you to just have a good understanding of movement and quality and dynamic, just as a standard, I was nervous that that I was getting stuck there in mood. Like I was nervous that my impulses and what I consider to be risky or what I consider to be beautiful were stuck in that very specific world. And so so then when I did get into the Ailey company, I made it a point to bring those strengths from all these other companies along with me, but to also think of myself as a freshman all over again. And to trust my technique and to trust my skills, but to also come in assuming that I know nothing. I'm here to absorb everything. And then when the time comes for me to sprinkle my own little sazon onto whatever we're working on, that's when I can, add the little sparks of Chalvar here and there. But I do think that having an opinion on things, having my own flair, and being unapologetically myself are things that I would not have really taken full um, custody or ownership of if I had not been put in all these uncomfortable places what is that word? To really show who I am prior to Ailey. Because at Ailey, I've been given a lot of great opportunity and responsibility to have roles that are, you know, a lead role or a soloist role that require me to not only have the chops, stamina-wise, and you know, be a virtuosic person, but to also be my full self and step into a character and not be worried about the interpretations before me and fully trust that my 2 feet are planted right where they need to be and they will carry me wherever I need to go. And so Ailey is just a place where I get to exercise that skill. And I think all those other companies are responsible for who I am or who I was getting in.
Yeah, so you speak also of presence. And I like saying being dropped in.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, feeling your feet on the ground. So there is that, I speak about, for me, you know, semantics, right? So an image that works has always worked, and it doesn't always work for everyone, so I have to find all these different ways. But if there's like a line of truth, and that line of truth doesn't mean it's unchanging. It just means there's something in you that allows you to be the beginner. And when I hear you, you're talking about the beginner's mind. I mean, that's Buddhist. You're talking about reimagining, which is what? Which is letting yourself be the beginner and saying, right, so I have this body of knowledge, literally, I'm embodying knowledge. And now how can I step into the new with this embodied knowledge? Amazing. Yeah. Wow. Well, the next question was tell me more about yourself, but we can go on to the next more specific question, or would you like to tell us more about yourself?
What would be fun? Well, so I come from I have 4 sisters.
Oh, wow.
My mother and father are still in New Jersey together. I'm a new dog dad. My puppy is sleeping over there. She'll be 5 months old in a couple of days, and it's been really fun to be a dad. That's the fun. That's been the fun thing. You know, in the beginning, not sleeping for more than 3 to 4 hours at a time. And really being nervous about, worried about something other than yourself was the perfect way to cope with this quarantine. And so, yeah, that's been the most fun, learning about her and being patient with her, being frustrated with her, laughing, just watching her sleep is, a great reward because it does, the peace in this house has been compromised for a while.
Well, we went through a chewed computer cord when we were working on home studies, I remember.
Yes, I had horrible Wi-Fi because she chewed through the Wi-Fi cord. But here we are. We're back up and running.
You work very closely with Kyle, setting and creating work with him, Kyle Abraham. You do this in addition to dancing full-time with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater? That's the first question.
I was doing that before. I was doing that right before getting to the company, and I would still help him here and there when I was in Ailey too, because my schedule wasn't as strenuous.
Okay.
So I would still come around and help him. There was even a period of time where I was still suggesting dancers to him to fill my place because it's a project-oriented company at the time, so it wasn't just like anybody could audition at any time. So yeah, we were still very involved, but when I started with Ailey, the schedule got too crazy, but he was one of the first choreographers that I got to work with in the Ailey company. So we still never left each other.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So actually, oh yeah, how has being on the other side of the studio influenced you as a dancer? like what knowledge when I come into a new space, I try to make it light, and me with my humor, and I'll say to a group of dancers I don't know in a company, at a certain point I'll say, if I notice that there's like a lot of social activity happening in the back of the studio, I'll say, so guys, I just want to remind you, when you get to the front of the studio, you'll know this, but we see everything up here and we forgive a lot. And I do it to get a laugh, but it's also a little message to say, you are noticed pretty much all the time.
Yes.
Have you experienced how has it experienced you as a dancer? How has it shifted your perspective on being a dancer?
I mean, right off the top of my head. So I actually, a peer of mine that I used to dance in Kyle Abraham's company with a fabulous dancer named Rena Butler, who was also a Purchase graduate.
Yes.
And she is right now in the Hubbard Street Dance Chicago company. And she created a work on Purchase either last fall or the fall before that. And I was her assistant because we worked very well together. So she brought me in as her right hand. And being responsible for all these teenagers, for like 30 teenagers, at my alma mater where I met you, where the energy is through the roof, I was like, okay, so the first thing I learned was what respect looks like to me and what it looks like as somebody who is in the process. And and what participating looks like in a respectful manner and being engaged, what that looks like and what that expectation is,
Yeah.
and what it looks like or feels like to a 19 or 20-year-old. And the different types of conversations that need to be had over and over again. Because I also wanted it to be a space where they felt like there was agency and that we were equals in a sense without asserting myself as some authoritarian. I didn't want to be the cool guy, but I definitely wanted it to be a space where we weren't shutting down and intimidated by the person in front of me. Because that's also something that I have been not victim to, but have experienced before.
Yeah.
So, or even being on the other side of the Ailey audition. It took me 7 years of auditioning to get in. And now fast forward, I'm on the other side and I'm watching and I'm listening to the things that people are saying on the panel, and I'm watching the behaviors that they're talking about and how clapping on the side of the room or just being a team player, even if the job is not yours that day, and how when the energy that creates in the space, it's a very different awareness that I have now. Or even, in a rehearsal process, and like in a company like Ailey, where there's 32 strong dancers in the room, all looking at one or two people for an answer, and what patience looks like, what compassion looks like, what grace needs to look like for somebody in the front of the room who is responsible for not only making you look good, but making sure that you feel good and making sure that you're seen and heard and all of those things. And so now the duality of being on both sides of the room or on either side of the table, there's definitely, I feel like it's my responsibility to not only be malleable and to take changes each day, each minute, each second, but to also, be my full self, whatever that means for that day, be there 100% of that. But to also try to have a smile on my face, try to make sure that everybody feels the warmth that we all need. Even if I'm depleted, try to make sure that I'm there, try to make sure that I'm a support, even if that means that I'm quiet all day. Making sure that the energy in the room is one that really produces results and community and excellence. That's really what I've taken away from being in the front of the room. There really is a huge pressure on the leaders no matter how big the entity is, there really is a pressure on being, there's pressure being a leader. And while that is something that you should step into wholeheartedly as that leader, there's a way to be a support to that so that everybody can be nurtured, no matter what your role is in the big picture, you know? So, and that, I mean, that's hard too, because that also means that as a dancer, there's a different type of patience because you're there looking at all the small things. And so sometimes you have to zoom out and look at the big picture and take into account what it is that the people in the front of the room are trying to curate, you know? So there's always a conversation. There's always something at play for both sides, uh, whether it's stepping on the gas and making sure things are actually handled, and sometimes easing off a little bit and making sure that people have the space to do things properly. Yeah.
And don't you agree? I have found this through the years, because I love I mean, I feel like an anthropologist and an ethnographer because I've been inside, and we are inside, even as leaders, we're inside, but we're also very much observers. And I have found over these years that the way a place develops really has to do with the top. So all of the stuff it flows down and through. You know, I feel like dance companies are very porous, and it's like they absorb energy, as we know, right? So what you're speaking about with being in the front of the room with lead, you know, knowing when to lead, knowing when to give space, always having that smile, because, or if it's not a smile, it's in the air of this rather than right. And I have observed so many situations where I'm like, unhappy company, I look to the top. Happy company, I look to the top. So I'm in total accordance with you there as far as what you need to do when you step in front of the room. So Chalvar, when I hear you speak about this dichotomy of being in the front of the room and being a dancer, what I've learned over my years of actually thinking and being an anthropologist, the observer, and the ethnographer, being inside and of it, I do really believe that things come from the top down. And what we as leaders give to the dancers. So exactly this is the thing we're giving, with exactly what you said, knowing when, I joke and say when to put the police hat on or when to be the leader, that because we all need boundaries and we all need leadership.
Absolutely.
And we all need direction, no matter how old we get. This is stuff that every human being thrives on, and the expectations. So the space you speak of and the leadership, and then this joining of creating the person that you're going to be in a state of giving. So yeah, I agree I agree in practice, at least try to practice. We all have our moments
Yes.
where things just get frustrating. But okay, so then the question was, you alluded to this, but do you think this is a direction you'd want to go when you retire then, to be on to really?
I would love, well, firstly, I really do want to take a stab at fleshing out what my own vocabulary is. I've choreographed a few times on, there's a concert that we sometimes put on in the summers if we're not touring. It's for the Ailey Dancers Resource Fund, and we choreograph on each other. And I've choreographed twice for that benefit, and I had a really great time. And I've also choreographed for different intensives, like Earl Mosley's Winter Intensive and his Hearts of Men Intensive for men of all ages. And I have a really great time, not only making the work, but the most rewarding part is teaching and creating relationships with everybody that you're working with, even if you never see them again. And so there is something to a choreographic process that I really would want to have. And so right now I've been in my living room trying to relearn some of my improv material and to see how to really make that a more defined vocabulary for myself. Because I do want to be a choreographer of some degree um, before or at the same time as being a rehearsal director for a renowned company or a school. But I really do have a passion for organizing bodies and teaching movement. And so however that's going to manifest, I'm totally open to it.
Well, I just got a flash and I thought, oh, you sound like you're talking about being an artistic director.
Or that.
Yeah. Put it out there. Aren't you about putting it out there?
Yeah, or an artistic, because there's also something to being responsible for curating the repertory and making your own work and hiring the dancers you want.
Yeah, I think artistic director is actually in your future.
Okay.
So if you have, you know how Netherlands Dance Theater have at one point, actually, either I was still in Europe dancing or I just moved to America. Yuji Killian had NDT3, which was for like, if you institute that, when you're artistic director and you have Chalvar Monteiro Dance Company 3,
right.
Think of me, because I will be really old, but the love of dance is still pure.
I got
you. Okay. You've had 5 full years at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Is that correct or more?
Correct. 5 full years.
5 full years. Are there more types? You've spoken about this. There are more types of performance you want to investigate?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and can you speak to those?
Yeah.
So I guess what interests remain as a performer, and let's say bucket lists?
Oh, okay, great. Well, I guess this brings me back to that purchase experience that I glossed over. So my sophomore year, I was cast to be in George Balanchine's The Four Temperaments.
Oh.
And I was so excited. And I was gonna be, I was cast in the phlegmatic role, which is 1 man and 4 women. And there's nothing but beautiful high legs and beautiful port-de-bras, great music. And I had maybe 1 or 2 rehearsals for it. And I had just started to grow my hair out.
1 or 2 rehearsals?
I had 1 or 2 rehearsals. I had been called to 1 or 2 rehearsals. And then the topic of my hair came up with this faculty member.
Right.
And then I stopped being called to rehearsal. And it was instead put in a modern piece with Kevin Wynn, which I was so happy to be in, or I was cast in them both. And I was so happy to be in Kevin Wynn's work. But after having this experience with you the year before in spring concert and thinking, oh, I could have a career in ballet shoes. And then having this experience all due to something cosmetic that shouldn't matter, that doesn't matter, really did a number on me. And I talked myself out of a lot of things that I wanted to do. And then that paired with the lack of representation in a lot of companies I wanted to be in, or I should say current representation. Because I would love to work with William Forsythe, and I love Alan Barnes, who looked just like me, you know? And I just got the pleasure of meeting him over the summer when we were in Copenhagen. Beautiful person.
Oh yes, he was setting an opera there.
Yeah, I got to meet him for the first time, and I was like, I hope you don't think this is weird, but I'm gonna tell you everything I know about you.
No, he's one of my best friends, right?
I did know that. Yeah, and so the lack of representation at that time in 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah.
In just a lot of European companies, NDT, Nacho, like all these places that I wanted to go. Not only did I start to believe that my hair would be an issue, but I didn't see anybody brown like me. So I talked myself out of it. And so now all those things have left the building for the most part. But now I'm having conversations about, you know, what does NDT look like? What would that, what type of a leap of faith would that require from me to leave everything I know about this crazy country right where it is, you know, or Gothenburg Dance Company?
Oh, but I gotta tell you, the new director of NDT is an amazing woman, Emily Molnar, and I danced with her at Frankfurt. And as you know, she was the director of Ballet BC for
Yeah,
years. So I I am very excited about where that company is going to go.
absolutely. When I heard that, I was very, very excited. And so, you know, but now I'm like, you know, I've done 5 successful years at Ailey. I don't know how much longer any of us, you know, will be around. I mean, it is a company where it's been known where people retire there. People really set up shop there. But I feel like there's a lot that I don't feel, there's a lot of interest that I have that might not be fulfilled in this space in the most fulfilling way. And I feel like it might just require me to just fly across the pond and see what that means. But I also just have to have another sit down with my insecurities and just let them know that there's no space for them.
Exactly.
There.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
so
space for them.
I'm just so Europe is definitely something that I want and that I'm really gonna take a stab at. I'm really gonna just see what it is that they have to offer.
Good. Good. There's a lot to offer there.
Mm-hmm.
There is. And, you know, the wonderful thing, so I was crushed when I realized there would be a dance world without William Forsythe as a director. But then I just switched up the thinking and thought, but look at how many dancers are going to get the chance to work with him now that he's freelance.
Absolutely.
And that is truly exciting, I find, because you know, speaking from experience, he is a force to work with. And talk about learning so much, you know, so much I learned from that company and the culture of that company and him. And so, yeah, uh, just talking with you now, I think your bucket lists will be manifested. Just giving you that vote.
I mean, honestly, if I could have, if, in terms of bucket list, if I had like any, if I could pick ballets that I could perform before I retired, most of them would be a Forsyth work. If I could do the second detail, I would cry. I would cry right now. If I could do the vertiginous thrill of exactitude, I would cry. Lim's theorem, I would cry.
Oh, Lynn's
You
there.
know, enemy in the figure, cry.
Oh God,
Like
great
things I want to do. Yeah.
great pieces. Enemy's a wonderful piece. I loved dancing Enemy. Vertiginous, word of warning. One of the hardest 15 minutes of my life I ever did. So I should go for it, but talk about stamina. I cannot believe the amount of tiredness I felt in those 15 minutes.
My goodness. It looks like a roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. Detail's a wonderful piece. Yeah. I mean, hey, it's been put out there, Chalvar. So okay, these questions are I offer to everyone. Do you have a favorite? I know there are many. We're going to reduce it. Do you have a favorite, or can you share a favorite or impactful memory from your creative life?
Mm.
I mean, I know there are many.
Hmm.
Could be the first one that comes to you now.
Okay. Okay. The first one that came to my mind, I wanted to see if I could find a different one. So it was my second year in the Ailey company. and we were learning. I was fortunate enough to be in the first cast of Johan Inger's Walking Mad. And
Great piece.
what a phenomenal work.
Yes.
One of the craziest things, I mean, you're pushing walls, they're folding down, there are doors, there's hats, costume changes in the dark. And then I also, got to dance with this beautiful dancer, Rachel McLaren, that
I love her.
she was my partner in that work. And it was the first time that it was the first time I was challenged to deal with exhaustion, being a thoughtful partner, being articulate, and responsible for all the elements of the stage at the same time. And I felt like it was the first time I had to put on my big boy pants and really, and create dance theater in a European fashion, in a way that I've always dreamt of. And so that was one of the first times where I really, really, really got to work on my partnering skills. I remember partnering with you at Purchase for a semester, and you were teaching us Forsyth duets and things.
Yeah.
But it was the first time as a professional, because I think Ailey too, my experience with partnering was minimal. With Kyle, there was no traditional partnering really necessary. And my first year in Ailey, I wasn't really lifting women. I was doing Hans van Manen, but it was like I could just grab her waist, and that was the majority of what I had to do.
Right.
So doing something where she's sitting on my back, then she's on a wall, and then I'm on the wall, and I'm hanging from my hands, and then also having to make sure that she looks as light as a feather, and I'm not just a bulldozer, and making sure that my feet also point and my knees also straighten when they need to.
Yes.
Then making sure that my face isn't in a state of shock the whole time as well,
Yeah.
So just making sure that all the elements are working and that everything is still a performance and that there's finesse as a part of the combination. So that was the first, I think, one of my most memorable and most challenging experiences as an artist, because I had to worry about myself and someone else and inanimate objects all at the same time and be fully present with each thing. Yeah.
Wow. It's a beautiful piece.
So good.
It's a piece I think every dancer would love. I would love to dance that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a daily inspiration besides your new puppy? A daily inspiration that you would like to share about living a creative life?
Honestly, well, okay, so it's a little different now because my body is fully rested. And if it, getting up in the morning, I'm not shuffling to the bathroom because my calves are about to pop, But, at one point though, I would wake up and be grateful that my muscles were so sore. And that was a thing that would inspire me to get through the day. How can I not only acknowledge and celebrate the work that I did yesterday, because I can feel it, but how do I use this pain and this discomfort to find new sensations of ease and just enjoyable sensations through this pain. And I think now that's kind of taken a more spiritual approach in this quarantine.
Yeah.
But that's definitely always been something that I try to center my life around. Just as even if I try to go take a shower and I'm on the 5th floor of my building and the water is taking a little too long to get hot, you know what, God? Thank you. I have access to hot water, and so I'm going to take a lukewarm shower today. And that's just what it's going to be. And so I think that's what gets me through most of my days, counting my blessings, honestly. Yes, you're limping to the bathroom, but you're limping to the bathroom instead of needing somebody else to do it for you.
Yes, yes.
You can still pick up the phone and call certain members in your family, So yeah, you don't want to answer the phone right now, but you might not be able to answer the phone. This might not be a thing a week from now. So to find joy in all things, but to still have boundaries when you need them. You know, not make yourself available to everything, but everything that you have to make yourself available to find joy in it, and to you know, get the most out of every opportunity that you can. And that's something that was taught to me back at Sharon Miller's Academy for the Performing Arts. Honestly, something that was taught to me when I was 13, and but not something that I fully realized and walked in until I was in this, you know, swirling eddy of Ailey, where it's very easy to get lost in everything that goes on here.
Yeah, I'm grateful. That's the word I pretty much wake up with almost every day. And if I don't, if I'm grumpy, I make myself get grateful.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and this is the last question. I saved the very important one always for the last for the interview. In supporting and building a more equitable community, I know there are many things that need shifting and changing, but at this moment, do you have one thing or something that you believe needs to be shifted?
Okay, personally speaking, something that I've wanted to see shift is giving access is like, you know, the hot word, but really giving access and opportunity to dancers across disciplines in these same highly funded, reputable dance festivals. You know, really making an effort to make other forms of dance, other cultures, other peoples, other identities, you know, the exposure to new audiences that wouldn't be in a typical proscenium experience. I think something that I've always wanted to be involved. I mean, I've been blessed enough to do things like Fire Island Dance Festival, but there's also something to the exchange, like Vail Dance Festival, and how there's a residency aspect and a creation process aspect, I believe, and how that opportunity is really afforded to even reputable companies like Ailey. You know, like where does the conversation start to include other people and other disciplines and other voices outside of ones that exist in a point shoe or adjacent to a point shoe, you know? Because I also have an affinity for ballet. You know, part of me wishes that that was a career choice of mine in a past life or a future life. But this is the life I'm in now. And I think something that I would really like to have is just more opportunity for there to be dialogue between my peers and myself. I was fortunate enough to be in the Night of 100 Solos last year for the Mus Cunningham celebration. And I think that was the first time I had an experience like that, where I was on stage with the likes of Sarah Mearns, but then I'm also on stage with Shayla V. Jenkins. And then I'm also on stage with Kyle Abraham, my former boss, but now we're just peers celebrating the same person. And so I really would love to see more of those opportunities spring forth, to not only give us, you know, the opportunity to shine on stage with each other, but the community that was built and the friendships that were made and the bridges that were crossed because of that. And the opportunities that have come out of that experience a year and a half ago. I think more of those could and should exist. In addition to all the things that we're committing to in terms of making sure that women are heard, to make sure that Black people are given what they need in this career. But I think in addition to all of those, I think just, you know, reaching across the table, like you said, and making sure that there are real, tangible efforts to include people in what the conversation is.
Yeah. Yeah. Tangible efforts.
Tangible efforts. Something I can see and feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Chalvar, knowing you as a younger person, younger man in 2007, and then the joy of having this small little creation that we got to do together. And now speaking with you, what a bright, brilliant, beautiful light you are. You are a blessing to this world and this dance world, and I'm so happy to know you, really. So this conversation was beautiful. I would like to ask you, just as I finish up, I have like a few more little questions for you, just as far as where we can find out more about you. But if you wouldn't mind staying with me as I finish up.
For sure.
And so besides, going to the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater website to read your bio, do you have a tag? Do you have something where we can, a website, somewhere we can find out more about you?
Absolutely. Well, I have a website, chalvarmonteiro.com.
Good.
I don't know if it's updated, but it's there. And you can and also I'm most active on Instagram, and it's my name without vowels. Chalvar is CHLVRMNTRO.
Okay.
The only vowel is the O at the end. It's just my name without vowels. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm working on trying to create some type of content while we have time to sit still and invest in ourselves. But for now, those are my only two mediums.
Good. Well, great. That's good. I'm happy to hear you have a website. I think they're, at this point, a little bit of an unsung hero because Instagram takes over. But I really feel like people, if they really want to know more, that's a place where they can dig in. Absolutely. And I think, as you said, with your audition, from what Mr. Battle said, he, brought you into the company for many reasons, not just your dance ability. So I think websites are good for that reason, to find out, Mm-hmm. For the audience, you can see 2 new sessions every week, Tuesday and Sunday. And on our next session, you will meet Raphael Coumes-Marquet. He is an independent stager and rehearsal director working very closely with David Dawson. In the description box below, you will see a short bio from Chalvar. And now I want to say my thanks. Thank you to Gracie Spina, intern extraordinaire, wonderful co-producer. Thank you for all you do for this program, the Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Huge grateful, thankful to my dance community, which I am so honored to be a part of every single day. You give me life. And Chalvar, once again, thanks to you. What fun, what inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep reimagining creativity. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.